Shinji and Warhammer40k. Chapter 12. The Dance of Fate. Part 1. Normalcy had returned to Tokyo 3. However, Asuka, looking from outside, could only conclude, "These people are all insane!" Kaji had warned her. As half Japanese, she supposed she should feel something about finally being on her mother's native land. It was a pretty enough place. Tokyo 3 was a gleaming metropolis, a landmark of technology. The geofront and Nerve HQ was truly a sight to behold. Above it, however, it was the sameness that bothered her. She didn't consider herself as Rivalry, set apart even there. Now that she was around people who actually looked like her, it only made her feel even more isolated. The colour of her hair, her confident air, she stood out amongst the sea of black-haired, sombre heads. Tokyo 3 was all too new. It was all too itself. In Germany, she lived in the relics of a bygone era, in the Gothic and needlessly ornate. Tokyo 3 was just bland. Its people were bland. They lacked that sense of heavy historical continuity she was used to. However, she also hated that back in Germany. They watched her speak flawless German and rise academically. They let her indulge in all the fruits of their old culture. However, it would never be really hers. She was Nerve's mascot. They delighted in her and obeyed her, but somehow always with that undercurrent of mocking. She ate of it, but hated it. She'd been so looking forward to finally getting to Japan, where she could finally shine. The land of the rising sun, however, was proving to be an acid disappointment. A passing mailman bowed his head a little at the two pilots walking side by side on their way to school. "Good morning, Shinji-sama," said the old man. Shinji bowed back. "Thank you. Good morning to you too, sir." It only got worse as they arrived at school. All activity at the schoolyard stopped as they arrived. The Ayanami and Ibuki fan clubs paused in their daily melee. Everyone stared as Shinji walked in with a girl they didn't know. She looked ill-tempered. He looked sheepish at all the attention. He waved a little, and they politely went back to whatever they were doing. Shinji didn't even know how it all started. He tried to stop it, but had no power to. It was all so simple, however. Humans are social creatures. Whenever humans gather, there would always be some form of social hierarchy. Picture a playground. The ones the children look up to and decide the best ones to play are often the biggest and the strongest. And no one's bigger or stronger than the boys. Even the Gretchen had a blazing inner purpose that their peers could see. When the boys weren't out mobbing and putting respect back into the squigs, they were often competing against each other to see who was really bigger, but in a respectful manner, of course. It was just damn fun to live by the book. Other children copied their mannerisms, even if they didn't join in fully. It was a strong fad. Every child and most teenage girls ended up calling him Shinji-sama. It didn't take too long for that to catch on amongst the adults. Asuka seethed, barely hearing his comments about the school and their classmates. They treated him as she was treated, like an Emperor Nelson, but she could tell his people lacked that mocking tone. He tried weakly to get them to stop. He was just a normal kid, he said. "What a wuss!" she thought. "Then he goes all psycho. Fools!" To her, it was a clear case of nepotism. Nerve ruled the town, the Akaris ruled Nerve. Gendo was just creepy. She pictured the teen beside her, with a beard, and felt sick. She smiled her cutest as she was introduced into the class. "So, be nice to her," the teacher finished. "Are you an Evangelion pilot too?" someone asked. She nodded and held her right fist over her heart in a tectonic salute. "Of course! I am Asuka Langley Surya the Great, pilot of the new and powerful Unit 2. "What the hell?" Kensuke got up and pointed at her. "You don't get to say that until you conquer Persia." "Hey, show some respect!" Hikari stood up as well and glared at the class. "I'll conquer your ass!" Asuka shouted back at him, pointing contemptuously. Click. Toji tackled Kensuke to the ground before he could pull on that bolt pistol. They weren't supposed to bring arms into class, but the geek was so determined to sneak it in, they all just no longer even bothered anymore. He probably even slept with it. "You can't shoot her!" Suzuhara shouted as well. "The same protocols as with Akari applies to her too!" It all broke down into noise and squabblings after that. Shinji all but cowered in his seat, as his fast sight continued to fail. He didn't feel any scenario going on. She was just so full of infinite probability. Ray sat there staring out the window again. "Oh, foolish," she murmured under her breath. Implantation of Adam into his hand served two purposes. First, it kept Adam docile until needed, feeding off his bloodstream. Human blood, being derived from Lilith, was capable of supporting Adam, who was of arguably the same species as Lilith, but also acted as a sedative of sort. The second reason was to keep Seal from assassinating him until his scenarios could play out. The unity of Adam and Lilith was the only route to a controlled third impact. He tapped the fingers of his white-gloved hands on the glass surface of his table, then took a folder from Section 2. He'd spent too many years and too many lives to let anything stand in his way in the last few crucial months. Gendo began to read. Surveillance report. Ikari, Shinji. Over the past 3 days, the subject had visited mainly 4 locations outside of his residence. The first is the Tokyo 3 First Municipal Junior High School. Interactions were confined mainly to Langley Soyu, Asuka, Ada, Kensuke, Suzuhara Toji, Horaki Hikari, and Ayanami Rei. The second is Hinano 3 Manga, where he's conversant with Hyuga Makoto. This is the most infrequently visited location. The third is Tokyo 3 Shopping District, during late hours. He's always accompanied by section agents Jiro and Kentaro as visible guards in these shopping excursions. The fourth is Banyan Bookstore, where works Ada, Kensuke. Analysis is that he's being allowed to read books without paying, and remains there for hours. Ibuki, Maya, has also been reported to frequent the store, buying boxes of books. Inspection reveals these to be mainly romance and fantasy novels. Gendo narrowed his eyes at the last name and kept reading. Ibuki was actually more acceptable than Rei, as a focus for his son's attentions. The lieutenant was a very hesitant sort of person, easily controllable. She was enough to provoke protective feelings, as evidenced from the abduction records. She was weak. She was also inconsequential to his scenario. He made a mental note not to interfere if things took a turn for that direction. Wasn't there someone in Section 2 flagged? Ah yes, Rika Izuna. He'd also simply pushed the two together, regardless of their feelings. If the public believed it strongly enough, they simply had no other choice but to comply. If it backfired, predictably, Shinji might consider it worth far too much pain to even entertain the idea of pursuing a relationship with any female, or male for that matter. That might be the best course. Surveillance report. Ayanami, Rei. As instructed, monitoring of the subject is limited only to when she's in the presence of Hikari, Shinji. Interactions between the subjects have been limited to conversation. The next page has a direct transcript of all the words said by the pilots to each other over the course of 3 days. It barely filled half the page. Gendo nodded slightly, approving. Ray had returned to a better, more controllable state. He wouldn't need to replace her any time soon. However, he had killed her once, and was wary in case he ever had to remove undue influence immediately again. Something laughed. Gendo whirled around, but always there was no one and nothing there. His office was stark, bright and empty. Nonetheless, at times it felt smaller and darker, filled with such cold dread. That contemptuous amusement, at him, lurked at the edge of his senses. He loathed feeling so small and out of control. He clenched his fist. "Are you doing this, Adam?" He made another mental note to visit Akagi periodically to test for any physical and mental contamination. All research had assured him thus far there would not be any ill effects. Psychological reports. Lanley, Soyu, Asuka. Now the second child, pun aside, was a godsend. Prideful, skilled, predictable, she was only too eager to set off with just a few nudges in the right direction. He made plans to ensure she'd never achieve above her useful potential. One temperamental Evangelion was enough. She'd be the counter-agent against his son, and whoever it was that lurked behind the boy's odd success. The laughter returned, and this time he ignored it. He had no patience for sourceless fear, even if it was in his own heart. He could feel the tension even before he opened the door. There were stacks of cardboard boxes outside, and even more strewn about the bedroom hallway. The source of all that dread feelings was the living room. Shinji hesitantly poked his head to look, and saw their Asuka and Misato staring at each other across the table. They had the same cross-armed posture and the same obstinate expression. "Oh, good, Shin-chan, you're here," Misato said flatly. "Help me welcome your new roommate." "As if I want to be here," Asuka muttered darkly. She looked up and glared. "Why can't I just stay with Kaji?" "I already told you. Commander's orders. Evangelion pilots are targets, so this adds an extra layer of security. We'll just put you under the same security envelope Shinji's already in." Misato sighed and massaged her forehead. "Besides, this is Japan. No way are we letting you stay alone with a grown man." "Don't blame me for your people's lolly complex," Asuka shouted, even if that was what she wanted. "I don't want to be around you and your perversions too." Misato pulled at her hair and screamed, "I also already told you, nothing like that is going on!" Misato had once been Asuka's guardian. She didn't dislike the girl on mere principle, as she understood well enough the sense of loss in one's place in the world. However, it was like she was just spoiled, she supposed. She already had someone who would obey orders. The apartment operated so well in a hands-off manner that the woman was struck so suddenly with how unsuitable she was as a guardian. She was well out of practice in dealing with teenage idiosyncrasies. Pen, the only sensible resident of the household, walked up to Shinji and greeted him with a "Rat!" He took the groceries from the teen's hand with his beak, sorted out the 6-pack of beer, and took it with him into the refrigerator. Asuka's cheek twitched again. Freaking Japan. "So, my father ordered this?" said Shinji, as he sat down with them. "No need to pretend everyone's happy with this third child," said Asuka, still grumbling. "Why can't I just stay at a hotel or even alone? I can take care of myself." Misato had enough. She opened her palm out and snapped her fingers. Shinji handed over a can of yabisu. She quickly pulled out the tab and gulped it down. When she put it down again, empty, she was calm. "Asuka, if we're all going to live together, we're just going to have to get along. If we're going to fight together, we'll have to learn to trust each other." Shinji bowed. "Welcome, Soyu-san." Okay. First off, lose the formal talk, Shin-chan. We're not strangers here anymore. It took you long enough just to refer to Ray as just Ray." "Sorry, Misato-san." "Baka, Shinji," Asuka muttered, still slumped and pouting. Her meeting with Gendo hadn't gone well. He'd so bluntly told her that if she was disobedient, her Evangelion could be given to another. It belonged to Nerve, not to her. The bastard had so easily found what could tie her to Tokyo 3 and his orders. Ritsuko's true office overlooked the underground lake. It was far less impressive than Gendo's, and in the same way, vastly more useful. It was a place where she could sit and retreat from the world, free from the distractions offered by Nerve. It just looked so normal, as if it belonged in any office tower somewhere. She preferred it over her other workplace, the Magi main control station, which was a stark, dark room deep in the bowels of Nerve. Of course, there were certain annoyances she couldn't escape from, not without losing her own sense of dignity. Her upper office had looser security. "You are a person in a sad love," said Kaji in a low, rumbling tone. Ritsuko hadn't changed at all from what he knew of her. Still so serious. This could get interesting. Ritsuko asked, unamused. "You think so?" She typed at her keyboard without being distracted, even as he embraced her from behind. She didn't react as he began to feel up the side of her cheek. Being around Gendo's recent attentions had made her inured to the sensations of her own body. "Because those who have a mole in the way of tears are destined to live a life full of such tears," he breathed into her ear. "Why, Mr. Ryuji, are you trying to seduce me?" "Of course," he replied. "Why must you resist? You know our hearts urge to be one with each other." He grinned rakishly. If she wasn't in a relationship, why not? If she was, then she truly didn't seem happy about it. She deserved a little happiness, even for just one night. Unrestrained laughter came from behind them. They turned to see Maya hide her face behind an armload of folders. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't think people could still say things like that. I realised you weren't trying to be funny." She bowed. "I'm sorry." "Oh,
And who might you be?
Hey, she's cute too.
Leave my assistant alone, Kaji. You're not her type. If it helps, you're not my type either.
The spy fluidly rose to his feet and stalked over to the lieutenant in a casual slouch. He leaned against the door, putting his arm up.
How would we know, my dear? We're still strangers.
He grinned again.
I'm Kaji Ryoji. May I know your name?
Maya looked away.
Maya Vicky, sir.
Oh, she's so innocent. No need to be so formal. After all, we're going to be working together. Why don't we get some coffee after this and get to know each other?
Maya shook her head and replied cheerily.
No, thank you. Senpai and I do have the same taste in men. We prefer those with more backbone to them.
Kaji slouched straightened slightly.
I assure you, Maya-chan, I have a pretty big backbone.
Again, he grinned. Nice comeback. The kawaii was especially damaging.
Kaji, must I call a scary lady to come here?
Ritsuko called out, still intent on her work.
Decide if you want another shot at Misato or not.
Then it was as if a certain steel emerged from the depths of Maya's eyes. Her smile was still the same, but somehow vastly more threatening.
Please, sir. Important work is being done here and you're getting in its way. I'd appreciate it if you disturbed our important work no further.
Unlike with Shinji, Gendo had given no direct order for Rei to restrict her contact with Maya Ibuki.
Beware of Ryuji,
the blue-haired girl whispered as they passed each other in the hallway.
He works for those who are behind Commander Ikari.
Oh, is that so? Sorry to be a bother then.
He kept his grin. Interesting. Maya bowed slightly. Kaji felt he was being judged somehow. The young woman's posture was perhaps too relaxed, too grimly still.
Thank you, sir.
Her voice was still cute, but somehow also laced with the promise of pain. Most of all, she was just annoyed at his flirting with her senpai. He left, giving a friendly salute. Indeed, Tokyo 3 was full of interesting people. He wasn't going to regret requesting that transfer. That was how he called in the favour Gendo owed for delivering Adam.
I have the data from the Magi about Asuka and the Evangelion Unit 2, senpai.
She put him right out of her mind as she entered.
Just slot it in while I finish this up.
Maya complied. She served in many ways as a lesser shade of Ritsuko, very talented for her age. People considered her an heir apparent of sorts to Akagi's brilliance, as she was one of the few who could try and understand her exploits in biocomputing. Ritsuko trusted her with most of the mundane portions of her work.
She's quite good,
said Ritsuko, after linking into her private network.
Sync ratio, Evangelion combat skills, the Ava itself. Germany built well.
Everybody's going to keep comparing it to Shinji-kun, though, senpai. That can't be good.
The scientist nodded.
Unfortunately, Asuka's a very competitive person. Being raised in Germany, such a desire to be the best is laudable. Here it will only make her seem arrogant and power-hungry. Our greatest problem here is culture shock. She's not doing anything wrong, but...
People like Shinji-kun. He's humble.
As dictated by Japanese tradition, yes.
Ritsuko walked over to Maya's desk and looked over the reports.
The samurai serves in silence. The knight must always move in valour, spreading the word of his deeds to inspire others. People who believe she's trying to replace him can only respond negatively.
She adjusted her glasses.
Is this the data analysis from the last battle?
Maya Ibuki hid her blush as Ritsuko typed over her shoulders.
It's amazing! Their combined sync ratio reached almost 200%. I wonder what will happen if we try combining with Rei. How about all three of them? Could we reach 300%?
No, don't think so, Maya, Ritsuko chided. We'll not Gatai the Avas or their pilots. Such thoughts lead inevitably to transformation sequences.
Sorry, senpai.
Combined sync ratios rarely hold for more than a minute. See here?
She pointed to a line on the graph.
Asuka's ratio was in the low 70s for most of the fight. In a straight battle, that could prove a mistake.
Ritsuko was frowning over Maya's head, however. She knew how dangerous the 400% sync level was. The results showed that sympathetic injuries taken over the 100% limit was reduced when there were multiple brain signals inside the entry plug. Then there was also how Shinji could apparently manipulate Unit 2's AT field separately from the Evangelion itself. Asuka didn't need to think for that to happen. That didn't show in the sync graph. That only reminded her how much she still didn't know about the Evangelion. Hikari, Akagi, Soryu, the triumvirate of women who built the Evangelions. Decades later, she still ran at their heels. It was impossible to become self-assured when even they could so easily be replaced.
Senpai? Yes, Maya?
She still hadn't moved from the oddly intimate position. Oh.
May I have the external access codes again? I think I can optimize the simulator for Unit 2 tonight. Shigeru keeps bugging me to put in a scoring system.
The Evangelion battle sim isn't a game,
the scientist said with a sigh.
True, but I think we can rate by accuracy, speed, avoiding hits. Just now, the way I see it, it's inevitable people try to have the pilots compete against each other. Asuka needs something definite to tell her how she stands before she can try and deal with working alongside the others.
Not to mention quantify just how well Shinji and Rei's Evangelions compare to the production model. All right.
She patted Maya's shoulders.
Thank you, Senpai.
She was starting to feel guilty about lying, if indirectly, since she did intend to put in a scoring system, just to get some more abuse out of Magi's resources. However, they were all in the business of saving the world. She and Shinji-kun just went at it a different way, that's all.
Try not to work too hard. Believe me, the last thing you want is to turn into me.
That's not true, Senpai.
Maya looked up and then blushed wide-eyed as their noses touched.
I admire you very much. I want to be like you.
Ritsuko shook her head sadly and turned away.
No, Maya. This chain has to stop.
Would you end up screwing in a carry too? I already know about your little crush on Shinji. It's not like it was any big secret after the kidnapping.
Don't let this devour you.
School was abuzz with news, of course. The media released only the final moments of Asuka's fight, and naturally she was showered with praise for how awesome she was. In another time, news about the Evangelion would have been limited, but with Tokyo 3's almost thorough destruction each time, the Evas turned into a cultural icon. Nerve could only make them either wildly popular or wildly unpopular. The masses gave no other choice. As a consequence, Asuka was on first step on Japanese soil, already a media personality. They were already burning their brains thinking of how to add her into the growing Evangelion merchandising franchise. Asuka never had that level of publicity in Berlin. While she loved all the attention, it only further made her aware of how creepy and worshipful people could be. Amazingly, she was having too much of what she wanted. Asuka's cheek twitched again as she opened up her footlocker, and love, and some hate, letters just overflowed out. She emptied it all out to the floor and began to stomp on the pile of envelopes. Even a few days later, girls around her were unsure of what to think. There was, of course, the Genki, or energetic stereotype for a girl. Asuka went completely beyond that, and was seemingly powered by anger. "Stupid, stupid boys!" she spat as she stomped. Stupid, immature boys that think by such stupid little gestures they could get at her body. There were also those girls who hoped Asuka leaned more to their side of the creek. Her personality was such that she intimidated all the boys from directly approaching her. It was inevitable she'd get compared to the other intimidating beauty in the class, who shrugged off their advances in icy indifference as opposed to her fiery disdain. Consensus was that Akari was either a lucky bastard or doomed. Kensuke sat outside on the grass with Toji, watching the rest of the school make fools of themselves. He wasn't selling pictures, for he had little need for money. He could just make all the toys he wanted. Toji didn't have such a side job, but was happy as long as his sister or Akari was happy. Or to be more precise, not being nagged at. "They don't know her real personality," said Toji. He did have a stack of photographs, but not for selling. He'd confiscated them from two other teens that wanted to make a quick buck. He explained whether they wanted him to kick their asses or to wait for Asuka to do so. Sure, Asuka was a chick and they might be hoping for a panty flash. But like all chicks, they tended to aim for the groin. They gave up rather easily.
"I can't believe they're just letting her badmouth Shinman like that."
He began to grin.
"I could rig up a directional explosive device the next time she opens that."
Toji reached over and pulled the hood down.
"None of that, man. We gotta protect her the same way we protect Shinji. That's my duty as a guardsman.
This bites, man. Big time, complained Kensuke. Poor dude has to live with her. Shinji was actually taking far less abuse from Asuka. Verbally she tried, but he just radiated such calm acceptance. It was like a fine mist around him, a Kasumi aura, some would say. Physically, well, he would allow her to hit him, but likely Asuka would just get dogpiled in order of A. Masato, B. a mob of fangirls, C. a mob of boys and grets, D. Apocalypse Ray. Shinji found her positively delightful. No matter what scenario he tried, it just so very easily and quickly unravelled. He was trying so very hard to please her, seeing how so very obviously she was suffering too. Asuka was getting more and more pissed off every day, with no outlet. The pilot of Unit 2 walked with a train of people following her, like a queen in her parade. She tried to ignore them. Why didn't the other pilot have this hassle? Oh, she remembered, because he's a wuss. Naturally they wouldn't be drawn to his flame much as they gathered around hers. She was just more interesting. Naturally Shinji would agree. He needed to remain all but ignorable. It was better if everyone were looking elsewhere. Asuka was a godsend in that regard. Unfortunately, this would only add to her continued irritation. She found Rei sitting quietly on a bench, reading a small book. Asuka frowned slightly. Rei was less popular, or perhaps just immune. No one could tell her anything at all about the other girl. The Ayanami fan club, simply because Rei was so unwilling to defend herself, was the most militant of the clubs. Asuka stood on the edge of the planter, sending her shadow of the book Rei was reading. The blue-haired girl moved her book back into the light. Asuka took a step to set a shadow on her reading again. She grinned down at the other pilot. No response. So she spoke.
Good morning, Ayanami.
Again, nothing.
I said hello,
she added. Only then did Rei look up. However, she brought her gaze to somewhere behind Asuka. The second child turned to see Shinji arriving down the overpass and into the school. Asuka narrowed her eyes as she looked back down.
You're Ayanami Rei, the pilot of the prototype.
Ayanami Rei carefully put away her precisely written copy of the book and looked up. She waited.
I'm Asuka. Say you Asuka Langley, pilot of Unit 2.
She smiled.
Be my good friend, won't you?
Rei flicked another look at Shinji, who shrugged, then back at Asuka. It was the first time she met the other pilot, and she felt a strange new instinct. Interesting, was her thought to herself. Am I feeling territorial? Why? She asked.
Because it would be so convenient in so many ways,
Asuka responded flippantly. The sooner the others accepted she was the leader of the pilots, the better they could all coordinate with each other. Weak prototype units had no place in the middle of combat anyway. Friends of convenience often become enemies of opportunity, Rei responded, turning back to her book. If I am ordered to, I will. Asuka's cheek twitched again. She jumped her ways down and walked over to stand right in front of Rei. She put her hands on her hips.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Rei made no reply. She merely read on. Here's yaps to your drops, it don't matter none. What's important is the sedan, shut up, and gets it done.
You're a strange girl, aren't you?
Asuka added. Rei turned the page. She searched Shinji's feelings on the issue, and found only some form of amused acceptance. So she was no threat? She was a pilot, nothing more. It wouldn't endanger their plans, as long as she remained unknowing. I know my purpose. My purpose is me, she said. Rei felt something, and as she searched, identified it perhaps as jealousy, that Shinji would find some joy in watching another female. However, she pushed it down. She'd already given even her life for him. She believed until the end of time. Loved that which he loves, shunned that which he shuns.
And what's that supposed to mean too? Seriously, you're even weirder than that bucker, Shinji.
Rei looked up sharply, and Asuka looked pleased at getting a reaction. However, Rei only smiled very slightly. Thank you, Pilot Zeryu.
Huh?
Being compared as similar to Pilot Ikari can only be good. She nodded briefly. Do not fear, Pilot Zeryu. We will protect you. Together our power shall be immeasurable.
For some reason, too, she found Asuka amusing. Sister Ibuki had been teaching her about the concept of humour. She didn't truly understand yet, but somehow seeing the futile rage on the red-haired girl's face made her heart sing. Asuka's cheek began to twitch uncontrollably. A low "ooh" spread throughout the school courtyard. Did Ayanami just call dibs on a carry? One of the side entrances into the safe house opened with a whoosh. Ibuki Maya yawned and slowly got up off the bed.
Ray, could you hand me my gloves?
She asked the girl, who was standing nearby the side counters. Ray sat on the bed, watching dispassionately as Maya dressed. The safe house had a better computer system and an untraceable direct link to the Magi. It was important that mousy and dependable Maya's own home computer remained completely free of whatever various illegal information gathering she was attempting. Their common lair, for various reasons, was just more comfortable than her own apartment. It was the only place she could stop wearing such a weak little mask. Shinji'd already made plans. If the city got damaged again in the next angel attack, he could have a tunnel dug straight to her apartment. It'd be easier for her to appear to be living there, while at the same time working on her own plans under the streets of Tokyo 3.
It's been a while since I've seen you, Ray,
said Maya, while smoothing down her nerve uniform.
So how are things?
I apologise, also on behalf of Shinji, for keeping you uninformed, the red-eyed girl responded. We needed an observation period to pass, and your reactions through that time needed to be completely innocuous.
Maya nodded. Poking around the Magi had revealed to her just how daunting the task before them was. Little steps were needed, lest they wake a sleeping giant and be crushed underfoot.
It's all right, I understand. I missed you too.
She smiled.
So what have you been up to?
It is as we have feared. Commander Ikari has killed me.
Maya felt a cold fury descend upon herself. With the two Section 2 agents obviously following him around, the rest of NERV had no further reason to look into his affairs. It never crossed anyone's mind that they could be compromised, and by him of all people. Shinji trusted them completely. If out of unenlightened self-interest, he was sure they wanted to turn into puddles of orange goo no more than he did. He didn't even notice anymore how it was that he could be so sure people weren't lying to him, but he had confidence in their efforts. Their work was faithful and true. The door towards the bookstore opened. "Hello, Shinji tried to say. Her eyes were red and teary. She'd been waiting there, standing by that door for him, ever since her shift ended for him to arrive.
How could you do that to her?
She shouted into his face, her voice breaking with emotion.
You sent her out to die! Shinji, you already knew! What was that about not letting her die then? What about standing until the end of time? How?
She sobbed.
I thought you were better than this!
Maya, He looked as if stabbed. The pain in his cheek was nothing compared to the emotions thrust directly into his heart.
And the worst thing is, I still believe you're better than this.
She grabbed him and hugged him, and being taller than him, touched her forehead to his.
How much of your own soul did you give up so you could do something like this? You must have had a reason, right? It had to be done, right?
He felt hot tears trickle down to his cheeks. His eyes widened as it hit him all right then. He had indeed sworn to protect Ray forevermore. Upon their blood he had made it so. And he had sent her out knowing she would die. He sent her out hoping she would die. What have I... No!
I'm sorry, Shinji. Sorry. I believe in you. I don't mean to doubt you.
He pulled free from her embrace and stepped back, hunched over. He shook in place, as if fighting himself to keep from running away. Over the past few days, he'd simply forgotten, with Asuka's arrival and all the strange new activities NERV was up to. He had forgotten.
Do not blame Pilot Ikari, Sister Ibuki, said Ray. I am still here. I have done so of my own free will. We are all the better for it.
Shinji looked with shock down at his own hands. So thin, pale, quivering. He was just 14. He'd sent another 14-year-old to her death, and she'd done so without any hesitation whatsoever. He was still in junior high, for goodness sake, and he was planning on battling entities that could make nations kneel. He'd forgotten, if just for a time. It was an insult. He clenched his hands into fists. It was unforgivable. He would never ever forget again. It is done. I have done it.
Ray,
he said numbly. He walked, shambling and mindless, over to her, sitting there so calmly she filled him with horror. That there was no condemnation at all in her eyes only made it worse. He got up on the bed, almost kneeling. He reached out and drew back. He cringed from her gaze.
"You may touch me if you wish,"
said Ray. Shinji dove at her, pushing her to the bed. He clutched at her tightly, pressing his flesh to hers. Ray, he mumbled out, racked with guilt. I'm sorry. She smiled and ran a hand through his hair.
I am still here, Shinji-kun. Hear my heart beating. This is not a corpse you are embracing.
He only pulled tighter, as if never to let her go again. Moments passed in silence, but it was as if an eternity. She stroked at his hair and back, and very slowly his shaking started to subside. I'm sorry, Ray. I still killed you. I should never. I've betrayed you.
No, Shinji-kun. You have forever earned my trust.
Another weight pressed down upon the bed, and she looked up to see Maya joining them and looking forlorn.
Please remember that it was Gendo who pulled the trigger.
The full-length mirror in the safe house cracked for no readily apparent reason. Her companions looked up, all the grief in their eyes suddenly replaced with purposeful rage.
Shinji-kun!
Maya hissed out.
Please tell me why we can't just simply kill the bastard! What could possibly be worth that? I am ready to give my progress report,
said Ray, still too calm. Shinji wiped his eyes and nodded. Why was the world in danger? Because angels are attacking. Why are the angels attacking? To recover Adam. Why are they trying to recover Adam? Because we have Adam. Why do we have Adam? Because we brought Adam low during second impact. Why is it that we mere mortals can pull down such almost limitless power? Because we are children of Lilith. We have Lilith, and Lilith is stronger than Adam. She had defeated Adam once before. She may do so again. Lilith. It always comes down to her. She was the usurper. She was the one that caused first impact. The supposed cometary collision was merely the first stage. It was the war between the two entities that cleansed life on Earth, to allow the rise of new and inquisitive creatures.
Lilith desires third impact, said Ray. She does not care at all for we whom she has created. There is only one thing she wants, and that is the death of her true and ancient enemy.
She wants to reabsorb humanity to gain back her old power?
Maya asked. What a bad mother she was. Children can no longer return to the womb, which might be why Lilith first intended to puree all of humanity. Ray nodded.
However, the death of Adam is her only objective. As long as the other dies, she may leave this world. If we can engineer the death of Adam, she knows that it will also be in our power to kill her.
So, you made a deal with Lilith?
Maya asked further. Ray nodded. Only in true death could she truly reach towards the buried soul of the Great Mother.
We must kill Adam. We must kill all the angels, she said, putting a hand over her own womb again. Just as I could grow into becoming a new Lilith, so could they in sufficient time become a new Adam. They seek nothing less than our total destruction as well.
Where's Adam now? Shinji asked.
I believe, from the last time I was in his presence, that your father has Adam. Our enemy is either on or within his person.
Shinji breathed out. He opened his eyes and looked at Ray. He slowly smiled. Then, are you saying we've already run? We kill all the angels, and at the end we get to kill my father? This... Ray, being born of Lilith, was human where it mattered most. He looked upon her in rapt adoration. This is something wondrous you've wrought for me, Ray. Thank you. She blushed and looked away. She felt warm arms encircle her.
But we're also never letting you risk yourself like that again, right?
Maya said softly.
You're too important to us. We're never going to let you go. Right?
Shinji nodded, completely determined. I'm sorry, Ray. Thank you. But I should never have let you... die. Never again, Ray. I'm sorry.
It is no problem,
she replied. I can never make it right. But just tell me, Ray, what can we do for you? You've given us so much. You sacrificed yourself for our sake. It's not right for us to take from you. Please, Ray, Say something. What can we do for your happiness?
I do not need anything,
Ray replied. But she looked hopeful.
Don't be afraid, Ray,
said Maya, hugging the smaller girl from behind.
Just saying. It can be anything at all.
Anything, Ray. I'll do anything for you, Shinji added emphatically. Ray crooked her head. Anything? Her companions both nodded, firm and resolved. What nation do you want first, Ray? France? Australia? Great America might be tricky, but just say it and it'll be yours.
Then there is something I want the both of you to do for me.
They nodded again.
We must proceed down to Terminal Dogma. There are no interruptions or monitoring devices there.
They nodded, no fear or hesitation. Whatever she asked.
There, I want Pilot Akari to be loaded into the memory transfer machine. It has already been prepared. One of my sisters stands ready to receive your memories. If ever you should die, then while you might be female, at least you will remain yourself.
She turned aside to Maya.
Please do not think it an insult, Sister Ibuki, that I do not include you. What I most cherish about you is your pure humanity.
Shinji blinked.
Ray,
he whispered.
You are too important to this world, and to me as well, Shinji-kun.
The piece of her soul she'd given to him would act as the anchor, making it all possible. She felt herself being pulled tighter into the embrace of the young woman behind her. She felt tears on her neck.
You're just too precious, aren't you?
She heard Maya mumble out sincerely.
We're never ever letting you go again. Never.
She felt Shinji take her hands in his. His will would reshape eternity. We have won, she thought. In this we've already won. Lilith was completely unnecessary after all. Asuka splashed some water onto her face. She wasn't going to cry, damn it. She was strong. She could take it. It didn't matter what they said about her. They were just small, ignorant sheep. That doll. That obedient, pathetic doll. What do people see in her anyway? What do people see in him? That wussy, unexciting boy. Epic? What was so epic about going around in an apron? Sure, if you squinted it might look like a tabard, but it was a light baby blue. Insane. All of them. She slapped some more water onto her face. She didn't ask for much. She was so perfectly willing to prove her own strength, her own worth. She didn't want to be praised for anything that wasn't hers. They weren't giving her a chance. It was like they already decided she was trash at first look. She was just a nail to be pounded down. Well, she wouldn't conform, damn them all. I'm Asuka, she shouted deep into herself. I'm stronger than this. I'm stronger than them all. She was worth more than all of them combined.
Say-san,
she heard someone ask. Asuka turned to see a group of girls clustered together. They looked rather plain and bookish. One of them stepped up and asked hesitantly,
We were just wondering, what are you to Shinji-sama?
What am I?
She snarled out. Asuka twisted the faucet off, almost ripping the gasket.
What I am is something that your precious Shinji-sama can't even touch. What I am is someone that can actually see him for what he is. A scared little boy crying for his mummy.
What?
Silly little girls, what were you expecting? Some prince on a white horse? Shinji's more at home in the kitchen than at a battlefield. You're all putting so much pressure and trust on him. Don't be surprised when he finally snaps. He's only forcing himself. He doesn't have the temper for it.
One of the taller girls stepped up.
But that can't be true. What would you know? We heard him. You're lying. You're just bitter because he's better than you. What would I know? I live with him, you freaky little fangirls. That lunatic has you all believing he's so much greater than what he is, and forget that he's only fought in an Evangelion for months. No amount of talent can triumph over war skill. Even his creepy father, that man that runs Nerve, he agrees. I was made the team leader over the Evangelion pilots. You don't know how it is. You don't know how much people have given up, how many years were spent on making the Evangelions the best rep humanity has. No one can just get in one and magically make it dance. You don't know how many years He's not a savior. He's not a noble. He's not a god. If you believe in someone too much, you're only going to end up disappointed.
Damn it! She wouldn't cry, not in front of these deluded girls.
You all make me sick. You just sit there and cheer and expect others to solve all your problems for you. You're parasites. You don't have any strength of your own, so you try and steal it from us, living your little fantasies out of the pain in our lives.
You bitch! Someone yelled. Someone should teach you a lesson in respect.
Yeah, think you can do it?
She shot back. A good fight was just what she needed. All those days of bottled up resentment. Fuck Japan! Fuck this creepy, narrow-minded little country. You won't beat me down. She felt her eyes misting over. No! She balled her fists up. No more! They took a step forward. Damn the consequences. This arrogant foreigner needed to be taught a lesson.
Iraya? Ikanashi? Hanichi?
Spoke a calm, authoritative voice from behind all of them.
That is enough.
The girls turned.
Inquisitor Horaki!
They gasped.
This pilot is under my protection.
She continued. Hikari was wearing her jacket just on her shoulders again, her red notebook hanging on a long chain loop over her neck. She wasn't frowning, but her displeasure was clear.
Go,
she added. They fled. Asuka wiped her eyes.
Damn it!
She saw Hikari move off from leaning on a lamppost and walk over to her.
What do you want?
She growled out. Hikari held out a handkerchief. Asuka turned away.
I don't need your pity.
She spat.
I'm sure you're happy now, aren't you? Seeing me weeping like this? I'm nothing against your stupid Shinji-sama. He still has his glory. My responsibility is to monitor the interactions of the pilots with their peer group. Pity has nothing to do with it. Yeah, I'm sure it's nothing personal. It's just your job.
Asuka then went over to the faucets again and put her hands on the tiles. She looked down and breathed heavily, trying to compress all her emotions back into her heart. Screw you all, she shouted within. You don't have the right to hurt me like this. Hikari's look softened.
Sorry-san, I think you're making a mistake. I don't care,
was the numb response.
I'm me, damn it! I don't have to listen to you. I'm not that baka Shinji. You can't make me. You're making a mistake in thinking that just because we're your Shinji's friends, it means we can't be yours.
Asuka didn't look back, but was strangely silent.
Suzuha and Ada may be fools, but behind their idiotic little capers, they'll fight for you just as fiercely as they would for Ikari. You won't have to be alone. You don't need to fight alone. Ikari and Ayanami, they're your colleagues, aren't they? Do you really think they want to see you broken and useless? People call me Inquisitor Horaki because I seem to know everything that I need to know to protect the pilots. So you-san, please don't forget. You can also ask me for anything. Please let us stand with you. Please let us be friends. Don't need any stupid friends,
Asuka mumbled.
Don't need pity. Strong enough for my own. You are strong, Suyu-san. Asuka, please let me help you. Your strength is what will save the world.
She clapped her hands.
I won't let anyone try and mess with that strength.
Asuka took several deep breaths and then stood up straight suddenly. She turned and smirked.
You're the one they tell me who rules this school with an iron fist.
Hikari rubbed her fingernails on her shirt and held her palm out casually to look at them.
Boys troubling you, Asuka? I can make them gone. Fangirls getting out of hand? I can get Kensuke messing with the shower heads.
Asuka laughed.
You know, I think I might just get to like you. I think I can get to like you too, Asuka.
She held out her right hand, recognizing the Western ways.
So, friends? Why not?
Asuka took it and shook it.
Friends!
Kodama Horaki looked at herself in the mirror again. She looked at her lips to make the lipstick seem natural. She checked her hair again. She looked at her dress, a colourful flower print that hinted at more than revealing skin. She nodded. The doorbell rang.
I'll get it,
she shouted out. Kodama rushed, but not enough to muss up her careful personal preparations, and she found her youngest sibling already there. Nozomi opened up the door and smiled. She bowed primly.
Ikari-sama, Soyu-sama, it's good to see you. Please be welcome in our humble home. Why, what a polite little girl,
remarked Asuka, delighted. Shinji just grinned down approvingly. Kodama gaped and pointed at her. She rushed forward, grabbed her sister by her shoulders and smiled, cheerily but somewhat strained.
Please excuse us,
she said to the guests, and dragged her sibling away to run to the back rooms.
What the hell? Since when could you act polite?
She screeched out.
Do you have any idea how much I had to crawl just to get a carry to set this up? I won't have some little lolly messing up this chance for me.
It blew it out your ass,
Nozomi replied, picking at her ears.
I'm just showing proper respect, that's all.
He was just a boss. He was like royalty to the boys, even if they weren't allowed to speak it so plainly.
Why, you little two-faced weasel!
The doorbell rang again.
What are you two doing?
Hikari yelled out.
Fine. Hey, Shinji, Asuka, just seat yourselves wherever.
She opened the door.
Suzuhara and Ada, put that camera away. My house is not a spectacle.
Ah, class rep.
And take off that hat. You're indoors now, Suzuhara.
Oops.
Now come on in,
she finished sweetly.
Please behave.
Her two sisters, watching from the edge of a wall, shivered slightly. It seems Nozomi had nothing on the bipolarity of her middle sister after all. It was a casual lunch. Hikari prepared for Asuka dishes that were very common to the Japanese but not served in overseas restaurants. It was true, unpretentious home cooking. On tasting it, Asuka would finally be baptized, truly Japanese to the heart.
Ayanami's not coming?
Asked Toji. He breathed in deeply, the aroma wafting from the kitchen. He could barely wait. Shinji shrugged. She had something to do. He carefully kept Asuka at the edge of his peripheral vision. She didn't react at hearing the name of the other girl pilot. Good. Wisely, he and Maya had decided that perhaps it would be best if Rei stayed away, and not seemingly infringing upon Asuka's own day. Kodama fidgeted in her seat. Asuka was just sitting there. Nevertheless, she was formidable. What kind of girl Shinji liked was a topic of much speculation. By the two he was seen around, it was either a reserved young girl or a gentle older woman. Blazing fire-haired Asuka was from totally out of the picture. She smiled sweetly.
I must thank you for saving my job, Hikari-kun,
she said in a chippy tone.
Elder sister's an artist,
Nozomi put in.
Evangelion Fantasy Battle, the motion picture, will finally be out for release later this week. They employed an army of artists and animators to rush it into completion in just inside 3 months.
Kodama's left eyebrow twitched.
It's kind of a record. Multiple studios working together.
They had to rush it, since they didn't know if Tokyo 3 would even still be standing by autumn on the calendar.
Huh? You have an animation already?
Asuka was hiding her own face twitch. She remembered well Kaji's trump card.
What's it about? How could you have done that so soon?
Well, the trading cards were doing well, but there wasn't really anything to tie it all together. It would have failed without some plot. Then one day, one of the studio presidents found at his doorstep a plain folder. Inside was a script outline, and in the first page was written, "This plan has my approval, Shinji Ikari." Ikari-san's school ID was clipped into it. The writers only had to fill in the blanks, add dialogue, that stuff.
Kodama looked inquisitively at him. Shinji just shrugged. It's a mystery to me too, who wrote it. I gave my blessing to it, because I really did like it. Then I left it outside my door, and by Monday it was gone.
Mysterious,
Nozomi commented.
So you just obeyed the instructions from someone you didn't even know?
Asuka looked doubtful.
What was in it anyway?
That's what the movie's supposed to show for the first time,
Kodama replied.
There were 2 Evangelions back then, so that's what we're working with so far. They were the relics of an old forgotten age and an old forgotten war. 2 children woke them, the machine gods who once cleansed the world. These 2 children would then take 2 different paths using their Evangelions to defend their people. The first Evangelion, Principio Eternus, was found underneath the capital of the 3rd city. A farm boy from somewhere was taken and made to wake it up, for only he could match a very detailed, very ancient prophecy. The other Evangelion, unnamed but powerful too, was found inside a cave. The one who woke it was a strange girl, who lived upon creatures brutal, green, and not human. She preferred them, savage but honest, over her own kind. The Evangelions awoke in response to a time long prophesied, when the stars were right and the heavens would open. The star gods, vast unimaginable entities that devoured hope, would send their messengers down. They would then reap the living to feed their mad masters. Only the Evangelions could stand the chance against them, but they too were a danger. In an earlier age they destroyed almost all life in the world, in a war that was to end all wars. Fortunately, their intellect had decayed over the eons, and they needed these children just to move. These pilots commanded the force of ancient machine gods and the armies that walked at their heels.
Kensuke grinned. It was awesome! The writers crammed in cameos everywhere. I'm Tech Priest Ada, he who sees to the comfort of its machine spirit.
Guardsman Suzuhara, Toji put in. My father used to be the captain of the Imperial Guards, and while he was injured I had to take charge of the city's defense. The enemy angels put a curse that afflicted all those inside a temple, which included the king and most of his ministers, and the generals.
How nice for you,
Asuka responded flatly.
I suppose Hikari had to be there too.
Kensuke slapped the table.
Of course. What would it be like without Inquisitor Horaki? And I suppose she spent most of their time there looking after you two idiots too.
Kensuke drooped. Toji laughed weakly. True to life. Now that you're here, Asuka, I'm sure you can be in the next movie too, Shinji said with a smile. You deserve a high place in the canon. She nodded with a
Of course, but they'd better make it worthy my great beauty and talent and supremely magnificent Evangelion.
Kadama twitched her brows again as the conversation drifted off. Who's this girl think she is? The eldest Horaki was at the main crew of character design. She'd best not be assigned to make concept drawings of Asuka and her Ava. She was proud of how the movie turned out. The sequel had better not bomb.
It's ready,
Hikari called out.
Finally, finally,
Toji exclaimed, bouncing on his seat. Two phones beeped simultaneously. The pilots took out their distinctive red cell phones and heard the call from Nerve. Maya advised them of an approaching angel and the instant mobilization order. Hikari put a steaming plate on the table. Juices still bubbled upon the racks of food. Steam carried with it such appetizing scents. Both pilots groaned out loud.
What's wrong?
Asked Hikari.
Recall order,
Asuka replied, regretfully.
We're being called back to Nerve. It's an angel attack.
Can it wait?
Toji said.
Look at this.
No, dumbcock!
Asuka spat back. She looked longingly at the food and reached out for a shrimp. She drew back and shook her head. The taste would only serve as a bitter reminder. Shinji stood up and bowed low. I'm very sorry for this, everyone.
Sucks to be you, man,
said Kensuke, already wolfing down bits from the edge. Hikari slapped his hands with her large wooden spoon.
Ow!
The two pilots left. Kadama began banging her head on the table.
The intercept system of 3rd New Tokyo City was heavily damaged by the previous battle,
said Misato.
Only 26% has been restored so far. Operatable equipment at the actual battle zone is almost zero.
She turned to the main command display.
So, we'll just have to beat the enemy as it lands at the waterfront. We have the UN Navy to provide fire support, since we don't really have anything else that can.
This is screwed up,
muttered Asuka.
Not those people again.
Unit 1 and Unit 2 will then attack in turn.
Misato looked sour.
Commander Carey has left orders that Unit 2 will lead the order of battle for this mission.
What about Unit 0, Misato-san?
Well, it's still having control problems, Shinji, she replied. It's not up to the normal fighting level yet.
Shinji stared so seriously at the projected battle map. The shorelines were almost at the hills. There was a mountain over there, right? And it was just a single enemy. He shut his eyes and felt for it. Ray? He opened his eyes. But can he at least pull a trigger? He asked. Misato-san, may we have Unit 0 serve as fire support? You have the Ava positron cannon now. It should be useful if conventional arms from the Navy don't work out. Well, his tone softened. Like the last time.
Hey, I'm supposed to be team leader here,
Asuka piped up.
We're not in battle yet, Soryu, and I am operations director.
She looked up at the command tower.
Sir?
Fuyutsuki nodded. Make it so. It amused him to see how Nerve smoothly operated to fulfill that order. They moved with such unconcerned ease from obeying one Ikari to another. It made very little difference to them. He smirked. Actually, they seemed to move a little bit faster, a little bit more eager to carry out their duty. Asuka put her hand to her stomach.
This is ridiculous. I didn't even get to have lunch.
Masato nodded.
Angels are very inconsiderate like that.
She rummaged under her command post.
Here.
She held out a yellow cardboard box to Asuka.
No way!
The pilot shrieked.
You really expect me to go out there powered only by instant ramen?
Masato nodded.
It's this or go hungry. We can't allow takeout this deep in Nerve. We're at a critical timetable here.
Actually, there were cafeterias underground, but it would take too long to eat rice. It'd be too slow to digest. Better have a warm, full sensation inside the stomach. Asuka grabbed the box and grumbled under her breath. She continued grumbling even out to the Ava cages. Finally, it was time for launch.
Remember your procedures for close battle,
Masato said as a final reminder over the link. Roger, both pilots replied. She closed her eyes and felt the inertia rip. The linear launcher would have them travel vertically, then switch to lying down horizontally, to emerge somewhere outside the city limits. Time to shine, Asuka!